columnist and editor for The Cradle, Sharmin Narwani. And before we start, just want to ask you, as usual, as soon as you arrive, just hit that like button. Make sure to share this video, to subscribe to our channel, to check out our memberships here on YouTube. And more importantly, check out our Patreon, where you can become a direct supporter of The Cradle and access some exclusive content as well. And well, as usual, many things to talk about. But please, Sharmin, Karim, I need to ask you something. Let's keep this civilized. Let's not be animalistic. Let's act like civilized people, like Thomas Barak has asked of the Lebanese journalists.
We can't help it. We're savages.
We are all savages, I know. And in particular, Karim. He looks like a very peaceful man, but he is indeed a savage. My goodness, what a quote. What a moment. It created, I mean, a lot of humor in particular, but a lot of anger also, right? Like a lot of anger, of course. And now he has apologized, the special U.S. envoy to the region, whom, was it on Tuesday that he went into this media press after Lindsey Graham spoke about the Trump economic zone for Lebanon, which we'll get into in a moment. After Morgan Ortega's also, probably said something. He comes in and just says, guys, let's not be animalistic. We need to be civilized. And honestly, the cherry on top of the cake, that is the problem with the region. That is the real problem with the region, that you all are a bunch of savages that need to be civilized. It's not the bombs. It's not the genocide. It's not the apartheid. It's not the military occupation. It's not the color revolutions. It's not the Al-Qaeda government in Syria. No. It's just that you guys are a bunch of uncivilized monsters. What do you have to say to Thomas Barak?
Well, can we first listen to the video for those who haven't heard it?
Yes, let's do that.
Outside the region.
Civilize, act kind, act tolerant, because this is the problem with what's happening in the region.
What can I say? I mean, the reaction was instant. Even the Iraqi guy, what's his name, who threw the shoe famously at George W. Bush during a press conference in Iraq many years ago, tweeted about this video saying, "What did the Lebanese not have shoes? Or if I were there, I would something." But a lot of people.
He retweeted the Cradle and he said, "If only I had been there."
Yes. If only I'd been there. That's so cool that he retweeted us, though.
Muntadhar al-Saidi, a true hero.
Yeah, but people. A lot of people were saying, Lebanese were saying, don't Lebanese journalists have shoes? Yes. Basically pointing out that they were so servile and they were so, just enamored of being in the same room with him that they didn't act like journalists. They should have walked out.
They didn't act like Lebanese.
They didn't act like Lebanese. It's true. And then juxtapose that with, you're playing it?
No, I'm just displaying his tweet. You can.
Okay, I heard the sound. So, what I want to say is, if you juxtapose that with the,
I think your microphone, Sharmin, is not picking up your voice. I think so. Either your laptop microphone or because you all of a sudden sound very echoey.
Okay,
this is better. This is better now. Yes.
So if you juxtapose that video with that of Ali Larijani, the Iranian the new Security Council chief, and his visit to Beirut very recently, you have to see this because they're yelling out questions about Iran interfering in Lebanese affair. And then we have a video clip of the same journalist when Tom Barak walks in with Morgan Ortegas and he's gushing over her hairdo. Can you play it?
Act kind.
Nope.
No, I don't think it's the right video.
Because this is acts.
Yeah, I'll play it last.
Lebanese city.
No, I don't think this
not
is
that one either. Not that one either.
Well, while Karim finds the correct video.
كان هناك استياء رسمي لبناني من التصاريح الإيرانية واعتبروها تدخل بالشأن اللبناني وهي رافضة في قرارات مجلس الوزراء. هل هذا هو الموقف الرسمي الإيراني؟ I was then started.
So he
How was
says at the
hairstyle?
how was the hairstyle? And she goes, "You like it?" I mean, what the hell? These are not journalists. They're actually these kind of journalists in the Arab world are like your awful journalists in the United States and in Western countries. Absolutely paid for garbage, stenographers, PR operatives.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the funny part is that she was talking to the Iranian official, and he was asking him about, Iran interfering in Lebanon over some commands, and he's saying, "Is this like the policy of Iran against Lebanon? Because he's 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 a patriot and he cares about Lebanon." And then when the real actors and the people that made the Lebanese suffer and aided Israel and everything pass by, he asked her, "How's your hair? Did you like your hair?" Because apparently she made like a PR move and she made her hair in a very famous salon in Lebanon, and he was so happy. And when the video ends, he's so happy. Yani, I don't know. These are the people that we usually talk about, and we say people sometimes, Sharmi, don't understand. And why will there be people in West Asia or in Lebanon after all what happened that support the United States and they are willing to do everything for the United States just to hear a word from the United States? Yani, when she told him thanks, I think now I don't know. He's dreaming. I don't know what he's feeling right
He
now.
has a poster of Morgan Ortagus above his bed. I have absolutely no doubt about that.
100%.
Truly a
Have you
shameful display.
verified that? Is that true?
I think so.
I
It's not
assume.
so far, Sharmi.
Okay.
But no, I think it actually speaks to a larger problem currently, not just in Lebanon, right? Like across the region, across the world. Let's be honest. Like the subservience of the media towards the power, particularly the hegemonic power, and to have you be insulted, and then the U.S. embassy. I mean, Thomas Barak. I think we have the video. He offered. I don't know if I would call it an apology. I think he tried to explain his own colonial mindset. But then the apology, the actual apology, came from the office of Joseph Aoun, of the president. Joseph Aoun apologized in the name of Thomas Barak.
No, but listen to this. This is so insane. Al Mahatta, a Lebanese, excellent Lebanese news source, has revealed that the U.S. envoy had negotiated the release from jail of the disgraced central bank governor, Riyad Salameh, who created the Ponzi scheme that brought the entire Lebanese financial system crashing 5 years ago. Got him released from prison, and he also got an Israeli spy, okay, who was caught after the last war, right?
Mhm.
Released from prison released from prison the following day. So that happened today, and I think Riyad Salameh happened yesterday. And this is due, according to Al Mahatta, to the U.S. envoy's intervention. So I was even saying this after Tom Barak's comments. People were like, he needs to apologize. And I was like, not only will he not apologize, but the Lebanese will probably give up more Israeli prisoners, to apologize for the awful memes that have circulated about Tom Barak during his visit to Lebanon. And in fact, they released, the big Israeli spy while he was here. I mean, this is not a sovereign country. When they talk about Iranian interference, it's such a joke. I mean, an Iranian official just coming to Lebanon, they're friendly countries, right? On paper. Even coming to Lebanon and speaking gets attacked. And every other day, the Lebanese prime minister and the Lebanese president say something about Iranian intervention and then literally roll out the diamond carpet, forget the red carpet, for the Americans, who then order them to do things and decide on how their country should be carved up, who should be armed, who should not, where a foreign country can occupy legitimately, breaking all ceasefire agreements, by the way, with the U.S. as the guarantor for the breaking of those ceasefire agreements. I mean, and nobody would dare ask. I bet you know what? I want to go to one of these press conferences and ask about the U.S. intervention in the country and see if I get booed down by the journalists themselves.
Yes, I mean, don't forget that last month in the news, they said that a Lebanese journalist asked a tough question for a U.S. envoy, and she was like, she was pushed by another journalist because she asked a tough question, and we did a social media post about it. I don't remember the name, but I'm 100% this happened.
This is wild stuff. I want to thank very quickly Shah for a £5 donation. Let's go, awesome people. They say couldn't wait for the next episode. And Gulnara Marchis as well. Thank you so much, a $20 donation. Make sure to hit that like button, everybody. But yeah, go ahead, Sharmin.
No, I was just going to say then Tom Barak and the U.S. delegation visiting Lebanon canceled a planned trip for a tour in the south of the country because of protests by supporters of the resistance. So this was yesterday, a day after Tom Barak insulted all Lebanese journalists and therefore Lebanon at the country's presidential palace. So photos on social media, the one he's showing here, show Lebanese citizens holding banners and flags and saying Barak is animal. And so apparently the Cradle reported that the protesters had readied boxes of tomatoes to hurl at the U.S. envoy before news of his cancellation of his trip south broke. But I mean, I don't know. You said the president's office apologized on behalf of Barak and the Lebanese.
They didn't name him. They said, we had a guest who said something involuntary, and we apologized for this.
He couldn't help himself. Tom Barak has Tourette syndrome, apparently. So.
And the funny part is that that's how the Western journalists act. Also, we know what happened last time between Trump and Putin, when everybody started to yell and Putin couldn't do anything or hear anything. So it often happens, and it's nothing unusual. Every journalist wants to take a scoop or ask the question. That's how journalism works, especially in these areas. But it's not that how it works when somebody calls you such word and you don't act or you don't say anything.
Yeah. The protesters, by the way, also carried signs reading "America is the mother of terrorism," as well as Israeli bombs reading "Made in the USA." So not actual Israeli bombs. But
they had baskets of tomatoes. They were ready. They were ready to show their love to Thomas Barak. Very quickly, I want to answer something here because of my hat. Somebody says, am I a Blue Jays fan? Because they're Israeli compromise. This is Corbin. I am actually not a baseball fan. I am not a fan of sports in general. This is just a hat that my wife got a few months ago. So don't read into it. Neither she's not a baseball fan. But yeah, let's get into a bit the discussion of what is actually the proposal. Because before this whole Thomas Barak situation, caught on fire, Lindsey Graham spoke. A good old Lindsey Graham, Southern dandy. He says they're going to create, I cannot do a Southern accent. I wish I could. I think, Charmaine, you might.
I'm going to create, well, give me the script and I'll read it.
It was like the Trump economic zone for Lebanon. And I can do it, I'm sorry. But he
Trump's
called it the
economic zone for South Lebanon. Okay, so I can tell you that they're talking about a new plan. Right, to call it a Trump economic zone, right, in the south of Lebanon. They are also looking to clamp down on Beirut's southern suburb, which has a big Lebanese Shia population, but Christians and Sunni and others as well. It happens to be an area that the resistance actually worked hard to get Christians back to the area because, we have churches in that area, and this used to be a very mixed area. So they want to do Al Akhbar, a local Lebanese paper, very good one, released a report or said that reportedly the plan aims to treat the southern suburbs of Beirut, where Lebanese live, just like Palestinian refugee camps, and that the U.S. proposal envisions checkpoints at all entrances of the suburb, okay? They'll search individuals and vehicles and have implement a tight control on goods, material, and money flows.
Controlled by an Arab force.
Controlled by a foreign security force, possibly an Arab one. Okay, if you bring in Arab security forces, they'll get shot. I have to just say, if you bring like white ones, for some reason, even resistance in this region, don't dare shoot at them. But to have literally Western forces around Dahia. I mean, talk about a provocation. Same countries that armed the enemy to lob missiles, okay, and explosives that had what kind of ridiculous tonnage that decimated entire buildings in seconds. And they're going to bring these Western forces to encircle Dahia. You know, good luck with that. It's not going to happen. But Trump is also, and this was Axios reported, I think, recently about an economic zone near the southern border. And Tom Barak at his press conference confirmed this economic zone. And he said, we have to have money coming to the system. These people, meaning the Shia, right? The Lebanese, if we're asking a portion of the Lebanese community to give up their livelihood, we have to get money from the Gulf. Okay, so of course the Americans won't pay, Trump won't pay, even though it was their weapons that destroyed their plans that are trying to segregate Lebanon and move and herd entire Lebanese populations into Palestinian camp-like situations. And he's saying, these people have to be paid for what they're going to give up, and so.
I mean, let's call it what it is. It's ethnic cleansing. They're offering Lebanon the ethnic cleansing of the south. And you know why? Because over 65% of the residents of Kiryat Shimona in northern Israel have refused to return to their little homes, to their little settlements, because they do not trust they do not trust the army to protect them.
So the Israelis, and of course their masters, the Americans, cannot stand this because the Israelis are cowards because it's not their land. They have no connection to it. They don't want to return to an area that rockets could be lobbed into. But the Lebanese Southerners who are from this land went back in the hours after the ceasefire. I mean, they got up super early in the morning to be right there when the ceasefire was established and to get into their villages. And oftentimes the Lebanese army stopped them from entering their villages because there might be Israeli explosives laid, that kind of thing. The army wanted to screen the area before letting residents back in. But just last week, Jamil Sayed, who is the former head of Amnalam, which is Lebanon's general security, okay, one of the major anchors for security in this country, and a current Lebanese MP, he said in a post that Tom Barak has received the Israeli response to his mediation over the south of Lebanon. And what the Israelis want, Jamil Sayed is saying, it includes a ceasefire, which I don't know why they're asking that. Nobody's shot anything from over here since the ceasefire went into effect. It's Israel that has, violated the ceasefire many thousands of times over. So the Israeli response includes demands for a ceasefire, the handing over of prisoners, border demarcation according to the following conditions. So the Israelis are now demanding, without, taking care of their obligations of ceasefire whatsoever. The Israelis are demanding that Lebanon grant Israel the right to remain inside 14 Lebanese villages and to fully or partially evacuate their residents. Whatever the Israelis say, they'll say, okay, on paper, here's a loophole, and then they will stretch it to the max. So basically, as you said, Esteban, they're talking about the entire ethnic cleansing of southern Lebanon. And in those villages, Israel is demanding to establish permanent military sites on their outskirts. So here's what's going on. The Americans are it's just a joke. At some point, in the meantime from Syria, and please let's run this and then I will stop. A close source to, Al-Qaeda leader of Syria, President Mohammed al-Jalani, told Israel's I-24 News that HTS is prepared in talks with Israel to cede part of the Golan Heights in return for annexing Lebanon's major port city of Tripoli, Akkar, and the Bekaa Valley, effectively folding these Lebanese regions into Syria. So Shara, who cannot keep control of anything outside of Damascus, is basically saying to the Israelis, okay, we'll give you part of the Golan permanently, and probably a lot of the south that they want as well. And in exchange, we will take Tripoli, Akkar, and the Bekaa Valley. What on whose authority? It's go ahead, play it.
Lebanese city of Tripoli, as well as other Lebanese territories in the north of the country in the Bekaa Valley, would be handed over to Syria. Right, so a Syrian source close to President Ahmed al-Shara is saying that for the Syrians, Israel needs to hand over part of the Golan, at least a third, for there to be any possibility for peace talks. According to the source, there are two scenarios that are currently on the table. The first scenario sees Israel would retain strategic areas in the Golan Heights equivalent to 1/3 of the territory, handing over another third to Syria and leasing 1/3 from Syria for a period of 25 years. Now, according to the second scenario, Israel would keep 2/3 of the Golan Heights. Now, these are areas that Israel seized before the 1974 armistice agreement after the Yom Kippur War, not the territories that it seized after the Bashar al-Assad regime, with the possibility of leasing it for also a period of 25 years. And this is where it gets interesting. Under this scenario, the Lebanese city of Tripoli, as well as other Lebanese territories in the north of the country in the Bekaa Valley, would be handed over to Syria. Basically, the equation that the Syrians are trying to establish is Tripoli for the Golan.
But what about Lebanon? We'll talk about Israel.
But what about Lebanon?
Would Lebanon agree to this? I mean, the thing is, it seems like this Lebanese President Joseph Aoun and this Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam will agree to anything the Americans will demand of them. They are bootlickers supreme. It's kind of shocking. And then they ask Iran about interference in Lebanon's affairs. I mean, basically the Israelis and Syrians and Americans are carving up Lebanon. The South goes, is going to be emptied out, ethnically cleansed. The North can go to Syria. The only reason Syria is demanding this is because this is like, under American tutelage. This region, the Levant, is becoming absolutely an area where force determines everything. And because the Al-Qaeda leader in Syria is weaker than Israel, he will not ask Israel to leave. He will not ask Israel for anything, but he will take out his impotence on whatever he perceives as weaker, which is now Lebanon, right? Because Lebanon's occupied by Israel, just like his country is. And there's a race to which Arabs can control the north, Arabs or Turkey. So the Saudis are trying to put their footprint back in the north. The Syrians want to take it wholesale, and the Turks want to take it wholesale. So Iranian interference, I mean, there will be some Lebanese who would only pray for Iranians to intervene, which they won't, because that's just not how their foreign policy works.
And let's just highlight that currently Syria and Israel are, the Daeshistan in Syria is holding talks with Israel on normalization, stabilization. They use some term like this. And yesterday, just a few hours ago, Israel did a landing operation outside of Damascus, bombed the hell out of some military base that was just like 10 kilometers away from where President Giuliani was giving a speech at the Damascus International Fair or something that I guess he's
They're just trying to remind him who's boss.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of easy for them at this point to do this. It's very easy for because there's no repercussions.
No, and these are the same people who would say, look at Assad, he's so weak. He's just taking these hits. Assad did, in fact, he did in fact respond at times, but he knew that he was in a weakened situation because of the foreign imposed war in Syria, right? And the depletion of supplies, their economy, he did respond in kind several times, but most importantly, Israel did not take an inch of Syrian territory during his reign. They just walked in to the borders of Damascus with the Al-Qaeda leader there, which again goes back to, us always insisting that the United States, Al-Qaeda, Israel, Turkey, Qatar, the UAE, the Saudis, they're the same camp. And we see this because they're all paying homage to the Al-Qaeda leader of Syria, who is going to be, thanks to them, greasing the pathway ahead for him. He is going to be speaking to the UN General Assembly, a UN Security Council designated terror group is going to be addressing the UN Security Council as the head of state.
The General Assembly. He's going to be speaking in
Yeah.
front of everyone. Karim, I want to hear from you about this U.S.-Israeli proposal for Lebanon. Well, just give us your thoughts.
In the south, this is impossible because I don't know how they think. They think that the people that live in South Lebanon are like people that live in the Gulf. Maybe whatever they say they follow. It's not this case in Lebanon, and many people are also mistaken. And the people that are fighting for Lebanon, they are educated people. They are people that have money. They fight because they believe in their land. They believe that we should fight Israel. They believe that Israel is a entity that should sometime won't exist, and they pray and they fight and they work for this. It's not that
and they made up the resistance, the strongest resistance in this region for a very long time. These are the people who made it up, who created it. They're not going anywhere that easily.
Yeah, this is impossible, Yani. Every Lebanese that live in the south or who is originating from the south, at least they look at the United States as a disgrace. Looking at the United States, it's not that easy. Yani, if you hand them money or give them an economic zone, they will love you. Even we have Tyre in Lebanon. It's very famous. It's one of the richest cities in Lebanon, and the richest people in Lebanon, they live in the south. It's not as people think, and they are someplace in the mountains or
there are villas and mansions there, as well as centuries-old homes and villages.
Yeah, 100%. And most of their money is from Africa. They went to Africa a long time ago. And also, there's a hidden war that people don't talk about often. There is a war between Zionists in Africa and the Lebanese from the southern Africa. Yani they are well established there, and even Israelis go there to fight them. They pay money. They try political pressure to let them fail in Africa, and they didn't succeed. So these people, they don't need money. They don't need economic zones from Trump for them to tell Hezbollah or accept Hezbollah handing over their weapons, or they will stop resisting because they will see like Hagen does in the south. This will never happen.
It's becoming more clear to me that a war has to be had, and it's over Lebanon. If they want it to be a civil war, it can be a civil war. If they want it to be a war with the enemy, with Israel and the United States, it'll be a war with the enemy. If they want it to be a war with Syria, because Syria's, it needs to put its impotent rage somewhere, it'll be a war with Syria, and it's going to come. I mean, they're provoking Lebanon and pushing buttons that are unacceptable, and something will give. But the other thing is, I mean, today, right now, before we came on the podcast, Israel bombed the heck out of Yemen in what it claims was an assassination of a top Ansar Allah leader. They've not identified who.
The Israeli claim is that it was a meeting of leaders of Ansar Allah. They said they bombed the Interior Ministry and I guess a training grounds for Ansar Allah forces. Ansar Allah has already come out to deny all of this. Sayyid Abdul Malik al-Houthi has said. Oh my God, it's a very long one. Let me find this other one. Another leader of Ansar Allah said that the reports about targeting leaders in Sana'a are baseless. What is happening is the targeting of civilian infrastructure and the entire Yemeni people. This is the second time this week that they bomb Sana'a. That they do. I mean, these are like theatrical, right? Performative strikes to create giant fireballs and destroy some civilian infrastructure. Try to create that pressure.
Also, remember some months ago we covered this, Esteban, on the podcast. It was the Israelis claimed to have hit a Ansar Allah military cell, and photographs showed that in fact these were tribal leaders sitting around in a circle, which is very common in Yemeni society. This is how they get together for discussions.
Was it during Ashura? It was during some holiday.
I don't know, but it was like, I mean, I think even most media said, look, it looks like this was a civilian gathering.
It was
and not
Eid.
an
It was
Ansar Allah
Eid. It was
meeting.
like a gathering for
Yeah.
Eid.
So I mean, we've covered that in the Cradle several times now, features that show that the Israelis and the Americans are quite frantic in trying to infiltrate Yemeni communications and communities and institutions in the way they have successfully done in Lebanon and even to a certain extent in Iran, in order to do their terror attacks and assassinate important officials in these countries. So far there has not been any clear penetration, but we'll know if there's penetration if they actually succeed in hitting these people. And it's not like Ansar Allah's leaders are not stupid. They said months ago that they were taking measures to go into deeper layers of what is it, cloaking themselves and cloaking their activities because of what happened in Iran, for instance, right? And because of Israeli threats against their leadership. So, so far so good. Let's see what comes. I mean, Ansar has already denied that their leaders were,
And last time also they tried and they didn't succeed, the Israelis, but they waited like 1 month to say that they didn't succeed. I just want to thank Shannon Al. He or she is saying this is such a joke. Lebanon must resist U.S. hegemony. U.S. is losing. It's bullying power, but not fast enough. So that's what unfortunately used to say months ago that even before Trump was elected, I used to say Trump will fail maybe everywhere except in our region, because in our region, really, the United States is unfortunately is very powerful, and it's not only powerful. Some people in this region, they want the United States, they want Israel. And for instance, if you look at a country like Qatar, they built the biggest airbase in the region for the United States for free, and they then called the United States, no, come take this base. Yani, other people that live in a like sovereign country might not understand that, but there's people like this in Lebanon. For instance, we just talk about what happened in Lebanon. We have Lebanon is being threatened by the Israelis, by the Americans, and people are coming here like Tom Barak saying like bad stuff about the Lebanese, and later on, after a few minutes, the same journalist that was furious about Iran, he just smiles to this envoy and asked one of the envoy, "Your hair is nice. I like your hair." So
like
these
your hair.
people, they love the Americans. They are يعني brainwashed, or they have their agendas, their dirty agendas that they have can't be established without the United States and Israel. That's why they want them.
They're
They are
colonized.
not national. They don't have national plans. They are not patriotic. They have certain, they have certain plans they want to establish in some parts of the land of West Asia, and these dirty plans will not be established without the power of Israel and the United States. That's why this happens in Lebanon and in Iraq and in the Gulf countries and elsewhere.
Lav 66 with a super chat, and they actually bring up something that we should discuss, and that is the IAEA is back in Iran, and they say Pezeshkian is a captive of Western intelligence. Iran might be on its way to becoming the next Syria without a shot being fired. I mean, IAEA inspectors are indeed back in Iran, I guess under specific guidelines. They are not. Arakchi, the foreign minister, announced it yesterday, but also yesterday, and I don't know if we have that video, the Iranian MP at the Iranian parliament, who condemns this in the strongest terms, reminds the leadership that it hasn't even been 2 months since the parliament voted or moved to bar the IAEA from returning, and saying, this is going to open the doors for the war, for the restart of the war that we all feel is coming anyways. And also under the context of the threats of the European troika, as they're known, the UK, Germany, and France, their threats to reignite, to reimpose, or I guess just impose snapback sanctions, right? This is the famous snapback sanctions under the 2015 JCPOA, which Trump already did away with back in 2018. Now, 8 years later, they're still using it to threaten Iran. What do you guys make of IAEA inspectors being back in Iran?
So tell me when you have that video lined up, Kenny. Okay, so Pezeshkian I don't understand the reformists in Iran. Here's the thing. It seems almost every one of their policies ultimately goes to weakening Iran. But many of these are not bad people at all. They just are sort of like stuck in this defeatist Iranian bubble of like, oh, we're isolated. The only way out of this, and this is from like decades ago. The only way out of this is to reestablish relations to the West, take some hits, make some agreements, and then go on. But that'll never do for the West, because what the West doesn't like about Iran is its foreign policy. And the other thing the West doesn't like about Iran is its economic self-sufficiency. The fact that it makes everything from foodstuffs to petrochemicals to missiles to nuclear energy. This is not good for a global South country. It should not be allowed to do that in this region, because then Iran can sell its stuff for, cents on the dollar. What the Americans want they want a full grasp on this is a shithole part of the world for them, and they want to sell their steel goods to this region. So Iran has always been a threat of a good example, and that's what they want gone. So as we see in this region, just in an accelerated way in the last year or so, is the more you give the Americans, the more they take. There's no agreement ever that is ironclad ever with the Americans. It's a starting point in their minds. That's not what agreements mean to most people in the world. It means that terms are agreed on and we stick to it. So the reformists in Iran are really hampered by this mentality, and they're constantly looking to make to make initiatives or take initiatives with the West, to conduct outreach efforts with the West, and they don't understand that the West perceives this as a weakness. I have to say, as awful as this sounds, I think at this point, at least today, snapback sanctions from the European countries, okay, to just get rid of the JCPOA altogether, because for those reformists, even the well-meaning ones, stuck in their very, very dangerous, mindset, because it undermines Iran's national security and economic security, for them to realize there is no door open anymore. The Europeans didn't have the beef that the Americans had, and yet they did this, okay? We're not sure. We wrote an article about this, that even if there were snapback sanctions, in effect, the Europeans don't have the right to do this, since the Americans exited the deal, and the deal is in effect, not happening or not in operation. We don't know. There was a lot of, we did a legal look on how that would go. But yeah, take the sanctions out, then Iran has to forge ahead, and it's the perfect time. It wouldn't have been the perfect time a few years ago, but now it's the perfect time, because the Russians, with U.S. sanctions, the Chinese with U.S. tariffs and other maneuvers, to undermine China's security, the Indians with now 50% as of yesterday.
50%, yes, yesterday.
50% tariffs on Indian goods hit, that the U.S. put on its partner, India. These countries are more motivated than ever to bring themselves out of any dependence on U.S. markets, okay? I don't think they have to worry about that with Europe as much, because Europe is beggared, and Europe needs inexpensive goods, because right now the U.S. is trying to divert European buyers to American products, which has beggared European economies even further. So I think what we're going to see is, if the snapback sanctions come into play and full sanctions are hit back on Iran, well, there will be a legal fight, in international courts about this. Let's see if they go into effect. But immediately the reformists will understand that they really played a bad card, because in the end, they were negotiating. The reformists were negotiating. Pezeshkian's government was negotiating with the Americans when the Americans gave the green light for Israel to attack Iran, launch terror attacks across the country, launch illegal assassinations of foreign countries' leaders, and then the Americans piled in to bomb Iran's civilian nuclear energy program. So you can't talk with these people. And honestly, the reformists have to be on a back foot, because Pezeshkian makes foreign policy faux pas after faux pas, whether with Azerbaijan or Armenia or in relation to the West, in relation with negotiations. I mean, TikTok, their time's up. So let the snapback sanctions happen. Let Iran's so-called, resistance economy kick into full gear. Why do you need to buy expensive Western products, right? When you can make them in Iran yourselves, doesn't that make you a stronger economy than your neighboring countries with which now you're in strategic partnerships with, economic arrangements with, that didn't exist before? So east of Iran, right? There's the EU, right, that Iran has now signed an agreement with, just I think in May, all right, to start trading with, which is, Eurasian countries, basically. It's the member of the SCO. It only became a member when these countries started to think that the sanctions issue didn't matter as much anymore. They're willing to trade with Iran. China's buying Iranian oil and gas. India, it's a different time. So who cares about the snapback sanctions? But you're in fact right. Play the tape by an Iranian parliamentarian. So the Iranians are getting, the reformists are getting the whip inside Iran as well for their stupidity. IAEA inspectors, after they provided Israel and the US with evidence of things that made Iran's nuclear facilities a target, it's a shame.
It's a shame. Do you have the video, Karim?
Yes.
جمعی از جاسوسان آژانس در پوشش بازرس دوباره اومدن به ایران و این در حالی که خود شما زمان جنگ گفتید که جنگ تمام شما به حساب گروسی میرسیم. الان ظاهرا گروسی که داره به حساب ما میرسه. آقای لاریجانی عزیز، آقای لاریجانی بزرگوار، من میخوام شما موفق باشید، ولی متاسفانه این قانون مجلس هم اشکال داشت که کار رو به تشکیل شورای امنیت ملی سپرد. شورای امنیت ملی هم دیگه وقتی اونجا میخواد تصمیم بگیره ما خیلی چیزاشو متوجه نمیشیم. مردم عزیز حداقل بدونن شروط مجلس بر اساس تشخیص ما، چیزی که ما تو متن نوشتیم ظاهرش حداقل رعایت نشده. ما خودمون معترضیم به این وضعیت. نکته دوم تذکر به آقای عراقچی وزیر خارجه هستش. اونم این که امروز متن توافق و در واقع اون مدالیته شما با آژانس به دست من رسیده. من نشستم وقت گذاشتم کلمه به کلمه اینو خوندم. این فاجعه است این متن. اگر دروغ خواهشاً تکذیب کنیم ما هم خوشحال بشیم. اگر راسته که واقعی‌لا باید گفت، یعنی حتما این توافق، این مدالیته که اونا نوشتن اگر بخواد اجرا بشه قطعی میکنه جنگ بعدی رو با ایران، چون تو این رسما نوشته شده که ایران باید اطلاعات قبل و بعد از حمله اسرائیل رو بده که چیکار کنن، دفعه بعد نقطه زنتر موشک بزنن. خواهش میکنم اگر دروغ تکذیب کنید، اگر واقعیت نکنید. آقا امنیت ملی ما شوخی نیستش که میرید تو مذاکره اینطوری خیلی چیزا رو قبول میکنید و میایید. و السلام علیکم و رحمت الله.
I mean, the IAEA, the Iranian parliament booted out the IAEA, basically said we're not dealing with them. And so what is this? And I think answers will be discovered in the Iranian press. The Iranian press is really quite interesting. They go for the jugular, different political camps are represented in different Iranian media, whether it's television or radio or print. And so for sure, Arakchi and Pezeshkian will not get away with this without an explanation. They will be held to account. It is really a very vibrant democracy that way. You don't hear, top officials in the U.S. getting held to account in the same way.
Indeed. It's very interesting. And I think, I feel like this is going to, like, the justification is going to be like the snapback sanctions is going to be like, no, but we need to deal with the Europeans.
Yeah, let it be. Honestly, because I think a war has to happen, and I'm not, happy about this, but it has to happen in Lebanon. It has to happen between Iran and Israel. It has to happen between Yemen and Israel and its masters. These wars are going to have to happen. We are in just a stage of the war. The sooner it happens, in my view, the better. I mean, they're provoking us every day. Provoke them back. Let them bomb. You have every reason then to hit back, and hit them good this time.
And just to mention this before we move on, because I would really like us to talk about the India stuff, but just before, as you said, it's imminent that there's going to be a restart of the war. Today, the New York Times came out with an interesting report about how the Israeli army is facing widespread what is called exhaustion and disillusionment and that this is complicating the plans for the upcoming assault to seize and occupy Gaza City, and that about a dozen officers and soldiers who spoke with the New York Times say that the troops are depleted and exhausted, and that about 40 to 50% of their comrades are not turning up for duty. I know a few days ago you guys discussed the scheme to recruit U.S. and French Jews to the Israeli army to start fighting. Israel has a list of wars still on its docket, right? The Israeli army, and it's being completely depleted just by the genocide in Gaza.
I mean, if the U.S. is happy to foot the bill for even Israeli soldiers, they can send in Blackwater troops trained in the UAE and now Haiti. I mean, it's kind of going crazy. Somebody in the comments said, "Oh my God, this is all insane," and I have to say, I really feel it here. But see, this is what the U.S. side does. I always say this: they have to be kinetic, otherwise things fall apart. All right. So there's so much action and so many statements coming out from them. You actually think, what the hell's going on? We've covered just a small amount of the kinds of things we hear every single day here at the Cradle. And yet it feels like the world's falling apart, so they're very kinetic. And I do want to move to India on that point, because while the West is kinetic without being able to deliver on its claims and statements and threats, okay? Because right now there's a lot of threats, but no ability to deliver. The global shift away from the West is quietly out of the spotlight, okay? Very kinetically, but out of the spotlight, picking up speed. And this actually has legs, okay? So the US makes all these threats, and it sort of makes a lot of people in the global South go, oh my God, I got to, what's happening? And nothing comes out of it, or just a lot of, negativity. But the global South and the multipolar world is really building on, their program to establish a different kind of global order, one that is based on the UN Charter, actually, an international law being upheld, humanitarian law being upheld, no violations of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states, which the US and its allies don't seem to care about. Prime Minister Modi, so this is like another very interesting shift. We did write last week, our columnist MK Bhadra Kumar wrote about how the Chinese and Indians just basically made some deals to diffuse their border tensions, and they're moving at warp speed to implement these things, and made a bunch of other agreements. Basically, the Western media, suggested that basically the liberal media who hates Trump, and anytime there's an opportunity to poke at him, they do. They said, has Trump's tariffs pushed India toward China? Yeah.
Quite.
It has.
Quite a bunch.
Yeah.
And,
in fact, Modi, let me just finish this part. Modi has, according to German newspaper, I will say this wrong, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, and Japan's Nikkei Asia both reported that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who, once cozied up to Trump and vice versa, because they were like the two new faces of, populist fascism, that Modi has reportedly turned down 4 telephone calls initiated from Trump's office in recent weeks. He's not taking Trump's phone calls. He's heading to Beijing, and he will be in Beijing in 3 days for the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization's head of state meeting, which will last 3 days. And we could see some very important shifts then, especially since Trump has handed the Indians over to the SCO, to the BRICS, to the Chinese, to the Russians, to the Iranians, by raising tariffs to India at 50% yesterday.
Indeed. And as the sanctions, well, I mean, they are in a way sanctions, as the tariffs have come into effect against India, by the way, higher than the tariffs imposed on China. And you actually have the Chinese delegation set to visit Washington this week to discuss the tariffs, and India is getting, this very rough deal. Karim, do you have the video I sent? The one about these comments from Peter Navarro during an interview with, I'm actually not sure who the journalist is. I know you, Charmaine, recognized him. is saying something very interesting about the war in Russia and India's role in it.
thing that happens, of course, is Ukraine comes to us and Europe and says, give us some more money. So everybody in America loses because of what India is doing. The consumers and businesses and everything lose, and workers lose because India's high tariffs cost us jobs and factories and income and higher wages. And then the taxpayers lose because we got to fund Modi's war, okay? The road to peace runs at least partly right through New Delhi. I mean Modi's war.
Let me ask
because the road to peace runs in part through New Delhi. I mean, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
But there are some who say that we're losing leverage with China by eliminating the next
Modi's war. I mean Modi's war.
I mean, he doubled down on that. He didn't. It wasn't like a slip of the tongue, which can happen, as you guys know, when we're doing live and whatever. That often happens. He literally said, no, it is Modi's war. In fact, so Peter Navarro is Trump's advisor, right? He is basically, yes, economic advisor. He's basically suggesting that Modi and India is keeping the Russian economy alive. Therefore, the blame for this war and the continuation of this war and Russia's, back-to-back successes militarily and Ukraine's depletion is Modi's fault, which is a very, very stupid argument. The tariffs on India, as you said, are 16 percentage points higher than those Trump leveled at China, 31 points higher than most Southeast Asian countries, and 35 points above South Korea. And one commentator likened the U.S. duties on Indian goods at 50% to levels that basically amount to a trade embargo of India, which is understandably then, why Modi is not taking Trump's phone calls, making the trip to Beijing, or actually, I think it's at a different location, making the trip to China in 3 days. But India is the world's third largest consumer of oil. It is the largest population in the world, so that makes sense. And it is a top buyer of Russian oil. But, a lot of Western European countries are still buying Russian goods knowingly, either directly. I think British Petroleum is on the board still of Gazprom or one of those. But I mean, they know the Europeans are knowingly buying Russian oil that is being siphoned through Saudi Arabia, so through third parties, right? And India. They're actually buying Russian oil from India.
Indeed. And I want to interject very quickly because just a few hours ago, as this is all happening, Reuters comes out with a report saying that India is set to rise its Russian oil imports in September, despite the tariffs. So next month, exports of Russian oil to India are actually set to go up despite all of these. It's very interesting that it is like the comparison of a trade embargo, because at the end of the day, this is what it is, right? The tariff war is yet another weapon of the imperial arsenal.
To be honest, we should start calling it a trade embargo on India, because that's in effect what it is. I mean, India is, it has a population of something like 1.4 billion now, and huge poverty. Where China spent decades taking its population out of mass poverty, and I mean, a transformation that has never been seen before in history in such a short period, without being a colonial power and robbing the riches of other nations. The India situation is not good. They expect India's unemployment rate to go up significantly, several percentage points, as a result of Trump's trade embargo on India. And Modi has made some strong statements too. He has said that economic selfishness is on the rise globally, which basically means where countries are pursuing their own interests first. There's no consideration for other. And in this case, he's really talking about Western countries. And he says, we mustn't sit and cry about our difficulties. We must rise above and not allow others to hold us in their clutches. We should become self-reliant, not out of desperation, but out of pride. India makes goods and produces services that the West has become reliant on, because they no longer want to give that business to China, for instance. They're looking to make it come out of Vietnam. They're looking to make it but nothing beats China and India in terms of goods and services. And
Or like
I think,
workforce, like the size
yeah.
of the workforce.
And,
I want to just
Modi,
mention quickly
he's
what
got
you
just very quickly,
go
he's
ahead.
got a phrase. I mean, I thought he meant to say made in India, but I think it's make in India. So it is now his slogan, make everything in India. Be self-sufficient, because this is going to cut through, I mean, a real horrific sway through the Indian economy, what Trump's done.
Indeed, the quote you just read from Modi, it's like almost it's nearly the same quote that Lula da Silva said a few months ago when Trump threatened the tariffs, and Lula came out and said like, "Well, screw you, this is not how we do business." Now Modi taking a similar stance. Karim, do you want to read a couple of the super chats we've had, and also you can give us your thoughts about this whole situation?
Yeah, of course. We have one from South Pau.
I'm not.
You're a bit low.
Yeah, I'm not hearing myself. Can you read them so I can?
Yeah, sure. So we have from Southpaw. They say great discussion. Thank you, Southpaw. And another one from Laugh66. They say most products are exempt from U.S. tariffs on India, but gemstone industry is not exempt, and Modi personally is invested in the gemstone industry. That a very interesting side note there. Maybe it's more personal than we are giving it. Yes, that's better, Karim. So
now it's working.
What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think first the relationship between China and India it needs a long way. I don't think one visit will make it work, because also they have a very big land dispute in two different geographical places. One is, I think, north west and northeast India. I think these are very also important talks. Besides, of course, the war of tariffs that Trump launched, and nobody knows why he did that. He can benefit from other countries in other ways, but of course, the actions of Trump and the policies of the United States, and of course sanctions that they are implemented across the world. And we have a report that we talked about last month that 500,000 people are dying because and suffering because of the sanctions of the United States.
More than 560,000 per year.
Yeah, and of course, and what happened to Russia also when they invaded, or when they launched their operation against Ukraine. Nobody thought that the United States and the West will take such steps, steps such as taking ships, airplanes, and even money from Russia abroad. If they did this to Russia, which is considered as the second strongest country in the world, what they can do to other countries. So I think these policies are bringing countries together, such as India and China. And let's not forget also, it's very important to mention the recent clash between Pakistan and India. And we all know that Pakistan, with Chinese technology, was able to has at least the upper hand of the conflict between the two countries, which India used Russian and Western, French and Western.
French and Russian warplanes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we just shouldn't misrepresent what the tariffs are for. There are industries that are exempt, but it isn't just gems or gemstones. There's garments, there's shoes, there's sporting goods, jewelry, furniture.
For some reason, Charmaine, your volume is like blew up.
Volume?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay. So garments, gems, jewelry, footwear, sporting goods, furniture, chemicals. There are a lot of industries that are going to be subject to these tariffs. And I mean, India is a very strong example of a country, as you mentioned, that could where people could die from like sanctions, right? This is basically an embargo on India. So they could literally die in the hundreds of thousands because no jobs, just simply that. And so, Trump will answer have to answer for that. But actually, India is maybe, as you said, getting on the same page as Brazil, which was the same page China was on, and Russia has come on to, and Iran has been since the beginning of the revolution, which is make your own shit and don't depend on others. Don't depend on the beast. And it's a really good thing for India because, to be honest, it can get everything it needs in Asia. And the West is not such a wealthy neighborhood anymore for them to sell their goods. Don't forget, it's not like when Indians make a shirt that is $1, okay, and it's sold for let's say $85 in an American store. India's not getting anything more than that dollar. Do you know what I mean? There are plenty of other markets who especially with larger populations, because, by the way, this is also going to, in those same industries, raise the cost of these goods, furnishings, shoes, athletic wear, gems, jewelry, chemicals, and furnishings will raise the price of these for American consumers. So expect major inflationary effects to take place in the US as a result of this, the embargo on India. Modi has also done something very smart. He's immediately come out and he said he's going to have like a monster tax relief in certain industries, which means prices will not go up in those industries in India for domestic consumption. And that's very smart.
Indeed. I just remember this is a news item from yesterday that speaks to this entire topic that we're on right now. And it's, I guess, a follow-up to Mohammed Soidan's article from last week, right, about China and Saudi ties. A couple of days ago, the Saudi investment minister was in Beijing meeting with the Chinese commerce minister ahead of the China Arab Expo, and what they discussed was aligning China's Belt and Road Initiative with the Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. So it's not just India that is looking, up to the other side. They're starting to look east. The Saudis are quietly doing the same, and I feel it's this tide, right? It's this tide. How is Trump going to stop it? And again, I just remind everyone, we haven't even reached the 1 year point from Donald Trump's presidency. We're still, what is this month? 7?
I'm
8?
so excited in some bizarre way. I mean, this guy is accelerating everything that is negative, but everything positive that can come out of that. Because, I always think like with the world this dysfunctional and governance and economies this dysfunctional, you have to hit a hard wall in order to rebuild. And the thing is, the Americans, the Europeans are not at all. They have no plan for a world anything other than the one that's been in there, in place since the Second World War, while other countries have for decades been exploring and building on a vision, for another world. And it's all showing up now. It's not like they suddenly decided. They've laid the foundations for quite some time, and Trump is accelerating these, which is so exciting.
Even Israeli commentators are like publishing articles that say we need to look east. We need to start looking east.
Yeah, but by the way, your point about Saudi Arabia, I want to say that the Saudi Arabia had signed up to the BRI. About 20 Arab countries, I think we reported on this in the first year after the cradle started. There are about 20 Arab countries that have some kind of BRI agreements, which doesn't mean that the Belt and Road will run through their countries, but it means that they would like to join on and become hubs of some sort, okay? They want the BRI to benefit them in some way and vice versa. So it just means that maybe the Chinese and the Saudis added another component to the BRI. But I think, and for sure Kenny will disagree with me on this, I think that the Saudis are playing it safe because the US side, so that means the US, the UAE, the Turks, the Israelis are all thinking of routes that would benefit them and actually hurt the Chinese BRI and hurt Russian routes and hurt Pakistani and Iranian routes. All right, mostly.
Do you agree,
right?
Karim?
Those ones. So the Saudis are seeing, because mostly the ones initiated by the West have not even been built yet. The money has not even been committed yet for this. For the what's it called? The Middle East International IMAC,
yeah.
International Middle East Transportation Corridor, that they've talked about for ages, but nobody's even committed the money yet. This is from India and the Indian Ocean all the way to Haifa and onto Europe. Okay, there's nothing there, and for sure this is going to turn the Indians away from that. They were anyway skeptical because they have invested a lot in the INSTAC corridor, the International North-South Transportation Corridor with Russia and Iran. You know, we're seeing a convergence of now a common thinking about multipolarity, and maybe our old alliances were not so smart after all. Not just India, Russia, Iran, Russia, China, but India and Pakistan too.
This week, the Turks and the Azerbaijanis started construction on the Sangasur as well. They want to have it finished by the end of the year. That's what I remember reading. So it really is a race. It really is a race. Karim, what do you think? What do you think about Sharmin's theory?
Personally, I think that now the Americans are weaker than before, and they can't like build all these mega projects, and they have to give their allies some freedom to make projects. That's why we're seeing Saudi Arabia going there. I don't think Saudi Arabia can go and make like project with China without asking the United States, or without giving the getting the green light from the United States. That's my opinion till now regarding Saudi Arabia, and I agree that everybody wants to look east because maybe our ancestors or the generation before us, everything they saw or every advancement they saw came from the West. Yeah, for instance, the nuclear energy, nuclear bomb, going to the space, technology, and everything came from the West. But now you're seeing even on social media or people that you know, when they travel to China, they will tell you China is different. They will tell you we saw the future in China. So, and China is capable of building mega projects. Yeah, and I remember when I was young, I used to watch a documentary series called Mega Projects. Everything was from Europe and from the United States. Now everything is in China.
Indeed.
So, and people know, and the governments know, and the companies knows, if you want mega project, if you want to connect like continents, not countries together, you have to have Chinese technology or Chinese engineering. And the most important thing, they got the thing done. And for instance, a Chinese project will take like 1 year, 2 years, cost $1 billion. If you go to Germany or the United States, they will tell you we want $1 trillion and give us 20 years. So this is the big difference. Everybody is looking east, of course. By east till now, I think it's only China. I don't think anybody looking to India. Looking east, I think till now is only looking China. Indonesia is also a very good country. Currently, they have like they exceeded 1.5 trillion, I think, in GDP last year. But till now, the heavy manufacturing and like economy is coming only from China. I think China, by time, will be able to make other countries rise with it.
I think that the Gulf has a lot more freedom than you think. I mean, I keep harping on about this, but the OPEC Plus deal, when Joe Biden was like, no, you have to, raise production so the price of oil drops. Saudis just simply said no, meeting after meeting after meeting. So what I want to say is the Saudis now fully understand that there are two blocks in town. They may be predispositioned foundationally to the American one, right? Which actually the British one gave them life, right? So they wouldn't exist otherwise. But they're businessmen too. And this is another generation that's not their grandfathers who licked the British boot, right? It is a younger generation who's grown up to be extremely arrogant because of money. Hold on. Let me just say this one point.
I'm just saying they are still the same family, which is insane also.
It doesn't matter. Generationally, things are very different. Okay. So I think also don't forget, I mean, we just talked in this podcast about how, was it Tom Barak said, oh yeah, the Saudis and the Qataris, whatever, will have to give money to the Southern Lebanese. The Trump administration is just spending Emirati, Saudi, and Qatari money and tossing this around when they haven't agreed to any of this. I mean, don't forget, when Trump went to the Gulf, right? They promised him trillions, but has it actually come? No, they have some leverage now, and they're not going to want to foot every American adventure's bills. They're not, simply not.
Hopefully.
Very interesting. I want to thank you guys first of all for keeping this civilized and not animalistic. I saw a couple of people asking about that in the chat. I guess they joined late. Go back to the beginning of the video. We discussed Thomas Barak at length. We want to thank you all for joining us and remind you, hit that like button. It really helps us out. We need this podcast to keep going out to as many people as possible. The cradle needs to keep growing. And also check out our Patreon where you can become a direct supporters, and make sure to leave a comment before you leave. Just leave a comment on the video. Also helps for it to spread around to reach more people. For the Cradle News Roundup, my name is Esteban Carrillo. I have been joined by Karim Shami and Sharmin Arwani, and we will see you on Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.